Welcome everybody, I'm Marshall Jones.
And I'm Justin Criswell.
Welcome to the security recap video for the new launches from reInvent 2024. We're going to go over launches in a number of different domains, including identity and access management, detection and response, infrastructure protection, partner launches, as well as some other security-related launches across AWS services. So with that, pass it over to Justin to get us kicked off.
Great. Well, I'm going to start with some launches in identity and access management. And Amazon IAM launched resource control policies, or RCPs. And so what was announced was a way to centrally manage a data perimeter and access across your AWS environment. And with RCPs, you can restrict access to these resources such as S3 buckets, STS tokens, KMS keys, SQS queues, as well as secrets manager secrets. With RCPs, you're establishing the maximum amount of permissions for resources across your AWS environment. So for example, you could say, I want no principal outside of my AWS organization to access S3 buckets inside my organization. And you can establish that policy organization-wide. RCPs complement SCPs. SCPs, service control policies, are for IAM roles, and RCPs are for resources. And you can use IAM Access Analyzer to identify that external access before putting your RCPs in place. Next up, AWS organizations announced the control for centralized management of root access. So today, across your organization, you can manage the root credentials, simplifying auditing, as well as performing tightly scoped privileged access to those member accounts. So this new capability allows you to delete root credentials, and then instead of having long-lived, highly privileged credentials at an organization level, the administrator can say, these are the temporary, narrowly scoped credentials for on-demand access for those rare situations that would require that level of access. By removing this unnecessary overprivileged access, you don't have to do things like manage MFA keys because you no longer have root access in these member accounts.
This is definitely a big one that I've heard from customers quite often.
I agree. Very exciting. Next, AWS announced Amazon declarative policies. So this is a new management policy type at the organization level, and this policy allows you to enforce a durable intent. So you can say, regardless of the various API calls and new features that come out, I want EC2 instances to only launch from known vendors or a known provider. You could also block public VPC access, for example, across your entire organization. So you go into declarative policies, you configure the intent across your organization. It has reporting capabilities to show you where that intent is in place across your org, and then allows you to put in those policies to prevent those actions going forward. Administrators have additional transparency for their end users by configuring custom error messages. So if there's a deny, it can say, denied by my organizational policy, and here's an internal wiki you can go to get more information about this given policy. Declarative policies support EC2, EBS, and VPC configurations, with more coming soon. And then lastly, in identity space, Amazon Cognito announced a new managed login and fully managed hosted UI and sign-in experience. So with managed login, Cognito customers can now use a no-code visual editor to customize the user journey from creation to login, as well as features like multi-factor authentication and passwordless authentication. This provides customers the flexibility to implement low-friction, secure authentication methods while they focus on creating custom code for their applications. Marshall, I'll turn it over to you now.
Awesome. So the next domain that we're going to cover is our detection and response domain. We've got a few different launches in the detection and response domain, some exciting stuff. The first being Amazon GuardDuty Extended Threat Detection. So this is essentially a new type of attack sequence finding from Amazon GuardDuty. So if you think of GuardDuty in the past, it was made up of many different findings that gave us insights into things like port probes and crypto mining activity or data exfiltration. With the extended threat detection and these task sequence findings, GuardDuty is bringing and correlating these findings together to show us an entire security issue and mapping those to MITRE tactics, techniques, and procedures so we can understand when a security issue started all the way through the progression and when it ultimately ended. That way, when we're responding, we have even more insights into what needs to be remediated and what were the actions that actually happened. The next launch that we'll cover is Amazon Security Lake and Amazon OpenSearch Service Integration. So if you've heard of the term federated query or zero ETL queries, this is essentially using an analytics provider to query data as it sits in place like an Amazon S3. So if you're familiar with Amazon Security Lake, this is a managed security data lake where customers can bring in all of their security data so they can get insights into what's happening in their AWS environment and understand things, whether it's from security initiatives or incident response scenarios. With Amazon OpenSearch Zero ETL capabilities now, customers can use Amazon OpenSearch to query data as it sits in Security Lake for maybe you're doing historic searches on long-lived data that you have in Security Lake without actually having to move this data, so that data gravity being important for customers in this scenario. Next, we have Security Incident Response. We'll actually go to the event floor and hear from Michelle Fuller.
Hi, I'm here at AWS's reInvent 2024. I wanted to talk to you about the new AWS Security Incident Response service that just released. This allows our customers to be able to prepare, to be able to respond and recover from an active incident in their environment, such as ransomware. These events happen when you least expect it. AWS provides our customers the power of being able to look at findings in the environment, to be able to triage those findings and events and be able to designate and escalate those events if it is that indeed an incident that needs to be responded to. If and then that action does occur, we triage those activities with our own internal incident response responders to be able to provide our customers the security and the confidence to get their environment up and running with ease. And then after that event is resolved, we provide our customers the data, the analytics to be able to look into the environment, to be able to shore up those issues that did cause that event to ensure it never happens again. I welcome you to check out this new service and how we are able to help our customers and truly focus on customer obsession. Thank you.
You know what's great about that is like the preparation is just as important, if not more important, than the response. And so they'll help the preparation side as well, right?
Absolutely. They will help on the preparation side as well as continual evaluations and practicing as well as those response activities for sure.
Thanks.
All right, so the next domain that we're going to dive into is the infrastructure protection domain. So the first launches that I'm going to cover together are going to be AWS Verified Access and Amazon VPC Lattice, both supporting non-HTTPS applications. So if you're familiar with Verified Access, this was a way to get secure access to resources in your AWS environment using a VPN-less access to your corporate applications, and this kind of goes along with those zero trust types of principles. For VPC Lattice, you can essentially access applications using a kind of a service network across AWS resources, so think of that east to west traffic in that environment. Before, these services supported HTTPS connections, and now they both have introduced non-HTTPS applications through support as well too. So think of things like using SSH to connect to a server or an EC2 instance in AWS. And you want to do this not through VPN, but you want to do this through a combination of identity and device posture.
Nice.
So, from here, let's go hear from Lawton and Brandon on network firewall and Route 53 DNS firewall.
So AWS Network Firewall recently launched geographic IP filtering, as this was a common ask from customers wanting to restrict access either to or from certain geographic locations. So now this can be done with AWS Network Firewall, and you can get really granular with the rules of deciding to allow traffic to or from specific geographic locations.
AWS recently introduced Amazon Route 53 Resolver DNS Firewall Advanced, enhancing your ability to protect against sophisticated DNS-based attacks. Now, this new set of capabilities allows you to monitor and block suspicious DNS traffic in real time, focusing on advanced threats like DNS tunneling and domain generation algorithms, or DGAs. Now, these threats are often designed to evade traditional detection methods. And just to elaborate a bit more on that, these DGAs are programs that generate large numbers of new domain names, and cyber criminals and botnet operators are using these to frequently change the domains they use to launch malware attacks. Now, before, you had to specify what to block. With this new rule group set, DNS Firewall Advanced will be able to apply its own logic. With DNS Firewall Advanced, you can 1, create rules to inspect specific threat types. 2, add these rules to DNS Firewall rule groups. 3, enforce protection across your VPCs through various AWS services. This feature is now available in all AWS regions, including GovCloud. If you want to get started strengthening your DNS security with DNS Firewall Advanced, check out the product link page from the QR code or in the list of links below.
So moving to our next service, one we'll talk about goes along with the declarative policies that Justin went through earlier. One of those declarative policies that we wanted to highlight is Amazon Virtual Private Cloud Block Public Access. So this is a way to give the intent of having VPCs that don't have public access. So essentially you can declare in that declarative policy that I want this OU or I want these sets of OUs to not have internet access be given through VPCs, and you can essentially know that in your environment they won't have that public access, and think about what you might have had to do to gain this type of restrictions before. So managing ACLs or managing some sort of network firewall, but now you can do this declare directly from this one policy managed across an organizational level.
Now I'm going to cover some of the other security launches in other AWS services. So for example, in Amazon S3, the SDK now does a default integrity check using the CRC-based checksums for those uploads that are transmitted over HTTPS. So before, if you had multi-part uploads, you would have individual checksums. Now this is all one checksum for the entire upload, and it is CRC-based in addition to the MD5 hash-based current checksums. This allows you to check the integrity of the objects and make sure that they're the same objects that you uploaded. The full checksum is also stored in the object metadata so that you can do that validation at any time. Also, Amazon S3 Tables is a new bucket type that was launched at reInvent. This allows an easier way to store tabular data in Apache Iceberg format. These tables are specifically optimized for analytics workloads, producing 3 times faster query throughput and 10 times higher transactions per second compared to self-managed tables. So with S3 table support for the Apache Iceberg standard, the tabular data can be easily queried by popular AWS and third-party query engines. Additionally, they're designed to perform continual table maintenance and optimize those queries for efficient log storage over time so that you don't have to manage that yourself.
This was a big topic that customers brought up to me multiple times throughout the conference, so big one.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, didn't you do some comparison analysis in one of your Chalk Talks about Iceberg stored data and not Iceberg stored data?
Yeah, absolutely. It made the query efficiency much better when looking at CloudTrail data in S3.
Next, I want to talk about 2 announcements with CloudFront. The first one is VPC Origins. So now this feature allows customers to deliver content through applications hosted in VPC private subnets. With VPC Origins, they can identify application load balancers, network load balancers, or EC2 instances that are in private subnets to be the content origin that's accessed through CloudFront distributions. This allows customers to make the applications more secure so that the traffic is coming only from CloudFront and not around directly accessing these resources. Previously, to accomplish this, you would have to manage NACLs and other controls to ensure that your application was being accessed through CloudFront, and now that's managed through the service using VPC origins. Additionally, if you're servicing content from S3, Elemental, or Lambda, you can use origin access controls to have that same level of control. Amazon CloudFront also launched enhanced logging. So now customers can deliver logs to either Amazon CloudWatch logs or to Amazon Data Firehose. And you can select from an expanded list of log outputs, including JSON or Parquet for those files that you're landing in S3. And you can do automatic data partitioning. So instead of having to manage the partitioning yourself, the enhanced logging will manage that partitioning for you. And you can choose which fields to include and in what order you want them to be, to simplify having to manage your own ETL processes to reformat these logs before you can do analysis. Marshall, back to you to talk about generative AI.
Cool. We have a couple of generative AI features that got launched as well, both in the Amazon Bedrock guardrails space. So the first is about automated reasoning checks. If you're familiar, automated reasoning is actually a form of AI in itself that can prove that something is mathematically correct. So it's typically used to prove a system is working as specified. So automated reasoning works really well when we've got something that is a really, really large surface area like a generative AI model, and we can't manually check these things. So this is used in a number of other places as well as a number of other services as well in AWS, things like IAM and Inspector for network reachability findings. So it's a technology that AWS uses pretty broadly to make sure that things are very specific and very accurate based on these mathematical proofs. So we're also expanding that into Amazon Bedrock guardrails to help detect hallucinations and make sure that these large language models responses are accurate. So the second is Amazon Bedrock guardrails, once again, but for multimodal toxicity detection. So think about multimodal being the text and image and audio and video, different modes, and this is the ability to use guardrails across these different modes to look at context that might be something that you don't want your large language model responding with. This is giving you broader coverage and broader protection and prevention capabilities from different large language models. All right, and then into the partner security launches. The first one is a new partner AI security category. So this is for software partners as well as consulting partners. And this is a new category to identify partners who have showed a deep expertise in securing AI environments and defending workloads against AI threats and attacks. The next program that we'll talk about is the AWS Incident Response Program. So this is for service delivery as well as for service readiness. But this is for customers who want to help identify partners who they can engage with internally and externally to work through incidents, as this might be related to the new Security Incident Response service from AWS. And then finally is the Amazon Security Lake Service Readiness Program. So this is to help customers adopt Security Lake partners who have shown integrations and undergone additional validation to meet AWS integration best standards when it comes to integrating with Amazon Security Lake, whether this is from a source partner for bringing logs into Security Lake or from a subscriber partner where you're either analyzing or doing analytics with the logs in this underlying Security Lake.
And customers can find these partners by going to the AWS Partner Portal and then searching for these competencies and see which partners have earned these competencies.
Absolutely, great point. Thanks everybody for watching this reInvent Security recap. If you're looking for information on the launches that we've discussed or the breakout videos from reInvent, look at the description below. As well as if you like this video, please hit like, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.